Hello, everybody, from all the way from Portugal. Thank you for joining the webinar. We're just waiting for a few more people to log in. So far, we have a number of people that are in. For those of you that are already logged in, maybe if you'd like to tell us where you're listening from, that'll be great. If you look in the top right hand section of your computer or on your phone, you'll see a little questions area, and if you want to just pop in on there, tell us where you're listening from. We'd love to know where you guys are listening from, and we'll just wait another 1 minute or so before we begin the webinar. So yes, we've got Robert from Dallas, home of the Cowboys. Dallas, are you Robert, are you a Cowboys fan? We've got Paul from Toronto, Canada. My wife was born in Toronto, so there you go. We've got Bert, who is a Dutch citizen but listening from Cavaljal near Bombarral, so that's cool. We've got Sharon Wallace. Hi, Sharon. I spoke to you the other day, listening in from Toronto. Paul, my wife, I have to say that my wife is very nice. Paul just asked, she must be very nice if she's from Toronto. Yes, she is very nice. We've got Elisa from Warsaw in Poland. Nice. I had some very good potato vodka shopping from Poland not long ago from some Polish clients. It's very, very nice. Very nice stuff. Can't drink too much of it. Orlando, Florida, Connecticut, Denver, Colorado, Virginia, Richmond,
Wow.
Virginia. Very nice. Very, very nice. Lots of people from Belgium, Southern California. Great to have people listening from so many different places. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait 1 more minute for other people to join, and then we will be starting the presentation. Hollywood, California.
Maybe someone famous.
Maybe. The name I don't recognize. Doesn't look like a famous name, but maybe he's using a fake name because he's actually a famous person. You know?
Maybe it's Brad
So
Pitt
you never
that
know.
joined in, and we don't know.
Brad Pitt. That would be cool.
That would be super cool.
Yeah. How nervous would you be having to speak to Brad Pitt, Charlotte?
Quite nervous. Quite nervous. If I had to be face to face with him, I think my words would be blah, 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 blah. It wouldn't go very far. I'm a huge fan, so.
The guy that Milton, who says he's from Hollywood, he gets confused with Brad Pitt all the time.
What?
Lucky boy.
We've got Sherma from Houston, Texas, and Kidji from Los Angeles.
Right, it's all over the place.
It's all over. It's great.
Yeah.
Really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to clear a little bit of these questions so that we can get the real questions a bit later. So thank you for those of you for telling us where you're from. And we're just about ready to go. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so let's do this. Thank you everybody for joining this webinar about Americans buying property in Portugal. Obviously, we don't mind if you're listening in and you're not American. Everybody's welcome. A lot of this information that we're going to share will be relevant to everybody. And we're just really excited to share about our beautiful country above everything. We're just really excited to share about our experience of being here and in this wonderful place. Just a few ground rules before we get going. Just so for everybody listening that you know, we can't see you, you can see us. So you can wave, you can give us the middle finger, whatever you want. We're not going to see it. It's all good. Also, there's a questions. There will be a questions and answers section at the end of the seminar. We're going to just dedicate like the last 10 minutes to answering some of your questions. So if you could leave your questions until then, and there is a questions function on your phone or on your laptop, you'll see a little comments box with a question mark. That's for you to pop in your questions, but we'll be addressing questions at the end of the webinar as much as we can. One of our guests is walking off, so we're going to get going. But I'll first start telling you a little bit about myself. My name is Dylan. I'm originally from South Africa. I've been living in Portugal for the last 15 years. I'm a licensed realtor here on the Silver Coast at Portugal Realty. And what can I say? I'm very, very biased about Portugal. So take everything I say with a pinch of salt. I love this country. It's been my home. My kids are born here. And we just have a beautiful life here. So really excited. And I've had the pleasure of accompanying hundreds of families in their real estate acquisitions here in the Silver Coast and introducing lots of people to this country. I'm also the host of Portugal, the Simple Life podcast, but I'll tell you all about where you can reach us at the end of the webinar. I'd like to just very quickly introduce you to my two. Luckily, you're not going to be hearing only from me for 45 minutes. So I'd like to introduce you to my guests. First of all, Charlotte.
Hi, guys.
Charlotte, just very quickly, tell us about you.
Just quickly about myself. So I am half Dutch, half French. Which is already kind of a weird mix. And me and my husband, we decided to move to Portugal during the pandemic in 2020, in the middle of it. And now we decided also to start a family. So we already have one on the way. And for us, it's our home. Like, as much as I traveled a lot, I have myself actually a degree in tourism. So I always moved around. I moved a lot of countries. Portugal is, when I think about the next 20 years, Portugal is it. So it's just my base home. It's just that's every time we come home, we prefer being home than going on holidays. So I think that means something about the location.
Yeah, and Charlotte's also a licensed realtor here in Portugal. Her and I both did a very long exam to get our realtors licenses. So, and also Charlotte is very pregnant. So guys, if Charlotte has to dash off suddenly, if she's looking a bit pale, just you know why. Okay, don't ask questions.
I'm sorry.
Also, David, my next guest, also a little bit under the weather. So if he has to dash off, you might be stuck with me, but we'll be fine. David, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm also South African. Was born in South Africa. I immigrated in the end of 2000 to Portugal. Curiously enough, we had chosen the UK as our first destination, and when my wife arrived in the UK in August, mind you, it's supposed to be their summer, she said to me, I will never live here. So we decided to pop over to Portugal, not to waste our holiday, and she absolutely fell in love with the place, and that was our decision made. We went back home and started to pack up our lives, and we immigrated to Portugal. So that's what we do. We live up on the Silver Coast, in Foz do Areia, which is close to, within short drive from Nazaré and other places that people know on the Silver Coast. But right now I'm sitting in the Algarve. This morning I had coffee in Foz do Areia. I had lunch in Alcácer do Sal, which is a beautiful old town, very historic town. And I'm in a podcast sitting in the Algarve down on the coast. I can see from my room, I can see the sea, and it's just amazing. A beautiful life.
Tough. It sounds tough. I'm sorry that we are taking you away from your holiday. But yeah, thank you guys for both being here and not letting me do this alone. Let's get cracking. So this is about, this webinar is about Americans who are looking to buy property in Portugal. We're going to be chatting about the investment side of things, a little bit about location, a little bit about why Americans, but it's not only for Americans. Anybody that's from around the world will find the information here beneficial. So thank you to everyone who's joining us. We know we have a lot of non-Americans as well. So do not feel like you don't belong here. We're really happy. We're not American, so you're in good company. But yeah, let's get on to our first slide and just chat about some of these things. What I'd like to jump into first, guys, is just chatting about what we've been doing this for a long time, especially you and me, David, and we have had a lot of Americans over the last 10 years looking. I remember the first time we used to get American contacts or inquiries, they used to always be spam. And I still remember, actually, you talk about Foz do Areia. My first American client who bought here was 10 years ago in Foz do Areia, when I remember receiving the inquiry, I thought this is spam, but I'm going to call it anyway and see. They were real live clients, really serious, and bought a beautiful home that they still use today. I was actually invited to a poolside party at their house the other day. So they're still here and loving life. But originally we didn't get a lot of Americans, and we've seen this grow a lot in the last years. And we were chatting amongst ourselves, and we said, well, look, they're looking for the simple life. So we're going to unpack that a little bit, and what are the things that are bringing Americans here and others that are beneficial and that's attracting people. So, Charlotte, maybe you can kick us off here when we talk about cost of living, quality of life. You've lived in a lot of different places. You're raising a family. You like to eat and drink. You like to
Thank
eat.
you.
You like to eat. You like
And
to
to
eat
drink,
food
but
and
unfortunately,
drink water, only
yes,
water,
of course.
especially now. But just talk about the quality of life. I mean, when we're talking about affordability, education, things like this, just give people a quick overview of what they can expect.
Yeah. Well, when I say that for me, Portugal also has been a home base, or was established as a home base, is that there are things in life that I found out about myself little by little by getting older that were very important. And some things I used to always live in big cities. So I lived in Berlin, I lived in Amsterdam, I lived in Madrid, I live in those big capitals because I always thought that, well, that's where opportunities are and that's what life is. And I think I watched way too much Sex in the City, and that I was envisioning my life like this. And when I came here on holidays,
one episode is too many episodes.
but I always thought that would end up like that.
Carry on.
And I always thought that would be my life, and that's how life should be, and things like this. And when I first came on holiday one time, and then we moved immediately after, I realized that the simple things don't need to be that expensive, don't need to be that unaffordable. So for me, I am a big cook. I like to cook a lot. And so going in France, for example, you do have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables at the market, things like this. But markets became something a little bit fancy. So, it's kind of double, if not triple, the price of the supermarket, things like this. And as a young family, but as a young couple, well, you don't have the money like this. And something here is that the price at the local market and the price at the supermarket are almost equal. Like it's literally, I saw it this morning because I went this morning. So the tomatoes are 1.90 at the supermarket and they are €2 at the local market. Well, that difference doesn't make a big difference in your budget. And it's really a conversation with the people. It's really so you're part of the community. And so having that affordability to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, to have the opportunity to cook. When you go to restaurants, it's healthy restaurants. It's always fresh fish, something that I never ate before. Not that I didn't like fish, but I never lived somewhere close to the ocean. Madrid is completely in the center, things like this. And if you live in Amsterdam, well, a piece of salmon takes half your salary. So I was never really eating fish. I really think I could count it on one hand per year. And now if I don't have fish 3 times a week, it's kind of weird because it's so affordable, it's so fresh, it's so nice.
I mean, David, you just mentioned you had lunch in Alcacer. I know the place you went. I think I'm guessing you either had a sorda, which meant you would have to drive with the windows down afterwards, or you had some black pork. I mean, you wouldn't have paid a lot of money for eating a nice meal like that.
Pork. Today I chose black pork. My meal cost me so it was Bev and I and Benji where our grandson was with us. It cost us 44, 45 euros. Was my meal, and we had our main course. We had we had starters, main course, and we had nice honey melon. If any of the guests ever visit Portugal, you really got to try honey melon. They tend to grow it in the Alentejo, which is quite a hot region. Just sugar sweet. And we finished off with a coffee. At the moment, I'm not drinking, so there was ice cold water today. But that's it. A meal with a wine would have cost us about 55 euros maximum.
A bottle
for
of
the three
wine,
of
that
us.
is for
Yeah,
me something. A bottle of wine in a restaurant, a bottle of wine
it's cheap.
is like in between 13 euros and let's say 25. 25 is an
Yeah,
expensive bottle of wine.
Yeah,
that's a very
yeah,
expensive bottle of wine. Yeah.
But yeah, that's an expensive one. But from
yeah,
13 for a bottle. So I drink wine, my husband doesn't, and so it's so affordable that I take a bottle by myself because it's just I can't, not now, but I can do it. So that was one that was the affordability of those things is very important.
yeah.
Um,
I
I
mean,
know that.
Charlotte, as a mom, I mean, education. We both have a lot of American clients, and the thing that they always talk about is student debt.
Yeah.
When it comes to education, people are paying student debt off sometimes well into their careers.
Mhm.
Talk about that here in terms of education in Portugal, cost of
Well,
education.
that was one of the, of course, when you start a family, you start talking about, okay, what are you, well, at least we did, what are the salaries? Can we afford it? Can we not? Because you want the best for your child and things like this. And we started doing research, and I was amazed. So first of all, since 2021, all the kindergartens are for free, the public ones. And ours is literally down the road. Like if I just leave the stroller, she rolls into it, so I don't even have to go. It's for free. For free means with the food, with everything included. It's completely for free. They did that on purpose so that women could start working earlier because it used to take too much of their salary before, and so now women can continue their career earlier, which I thought was a great thing. And then afterwards it goes to then the public school, which is also for free, and then to the universities, which are also for free. You do have some private schools, but that's nothing compared to, I was
Yeah,
looking at prices, and it's like an expensive one, it's like 7,000 euros a year. I was looking like for very expensive economic school, things like this. So you don't go
mm,
into debt. So as a family, you don't go into debt. The child doesn't go into debt and doesn't, that mentality of whatever you want to study, you can just do it. If you want to study medicine, no problem, you can do it. You
yeah,
don't have to think about, and that makes a big difference when you decide also to have a second one, because that goes with it. And even without that, well, but that's something, Dylan, you will talk about later. But labor is for free, my things like this. So having a child doesn't impact greatly our
yeah,
life. So we can still go
yeah,
to restaurants, we can still enjoy everything. So that makes it something that, as a mom, makes me sleep nicely at
mm,
night. That I know that I'm not gonna have to worry now when my child is 2 about her education when she's 18.
yeah.
So that's something that makes it very easy.
Yeah, and then I mean, let's just bring it back quickly to the property side of things. And this is something that,
Mhm.
again, we're going to invite everybody to get in contact with us later if they want to talk more about things. But when you're talking about things like condominium fees for buildings, I know in America you talk about them as HOAs. These are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars per month in the US, 80, 90 euros in Portugal to manage a building. Um, Municipal property tax. We're talking about you're never going to pay more than 0.5% of the municipal valuation of the property in Portugal. Council tax in where our listeners are listening from, the UK, America, Netherlands, is much, much higher. So these are all things that really, really help you at the end of the day and just
Yeah.
make life a little bit simpler when
The
things are
daily cost.
cheaper
So
as well.
I just received my invoice for the garbage. So where I live, the garbage goes with the water, and the
Mm,
garbage. So the garbage and cleaning of the street and those stuff. It's 20 euros a month.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's those little things. Also electricity. I
yeah,
know the states. It depends a little bit on where you are, but I know from the UK that it's so high. Electricity here
yeah.
with our air conditioning on, it's okay. It's like 80,
Hmm.
100 euros a month. So
Yeah.
all these costs, those daily life costs, are just very affordable, and you
Mm,
can make it even more affordable if you decide to. So me and my husband, we are not very careful. We like to eat out all the time, but it's also possible to really cook very nice meals or all these things at home. So it's really, you have the possibility to just have a simple life and not be afraid of your
yeah.
wallet, and that's very good.
Yeah, let's move on. We're going to tag the other South African, on a very relevant question for a lot of our listeners, which is security. People are coming here because it's safe, David. This was a factor for you as well.
Well, it's a huge factor. It's a huge factor, especially for South Africans. And I must say, I travel a lot to the US, and I've got a bit of the same feeling in the last couple of years. You start to sense it. South Africans have got a built-in antenna, a radar, that crime radar. And sadly, I mean, just this week, a friend of mine was assassinated in South Africa. These things are daily occurrences for South Africans. So Bev and I, my wife, we decided that in the mid 90s, we decided that, you know what, we just had to give our children a much better life than what we could see on the horizon. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for me. I haven't had an alarm in 24 years. I don't need security of any sort. I can walk on the streets day and night. You know, if our children, well, now our children are all out of the house and all grown up and stuff, but when they were going out in South Africa, you have to tag your children so that you make sure that they get home safely, because there's a real risk that they may be attacked or hijacked or one of these things. Whereas in Portugal, it's really, are they going to break down and call you in the middle of the night so that they interrupt your sleep? That's pretty much as far as the risk goes. Especially, I'm a dad with 3 daughters. You know, my daughters can walk on the streets at any time of the day or night, and they're perfectly safe. That's just a beautiful thing. There's a lot of respect for the women. Portuguese have a real respect for women, and it's something that I appreciate so much. And I never really valued living in a young country, which South Africa essentially is, but coming to this old world where people have values, that this kindness ingrained in them. It's just a beautiful place and a safe place for us to live.
I mean, always rule number 1 at a barbecue: don't speak about politics. But we need to just speak a little bit about politics. I mean, when we again listening to, and like you mentioned, you've visited, you know, as chairman of the group, you've been to America on numerous trade missions and things. Politically, we're looking at things happening in France that are a bit hectic. The UK, things aren't stable, and it's not so much the instability, but it's the animosity and the tension. In Portugal, you wouldn't know an election was happening unless someone told you there was an election happening. It's just so calm. I mean, just shed some light on that, David.
Yeah, as a businessman, politics in all other countries that I've worked in, politics really influences and really affects our lives, and it's something that we have to plan for in terms of how we run our business. In Portugal, the change is so subtle. Both of our primary parties are in the center. Either one of them would be left in most countries, but there's very little change. At the moment, we've got a center-right party in government. The change between the center-right and the left was really just, we changed our prime minister. Everything else was carried on as normal. And for us as business people, that's what we want. We need stability in the economy. We need to feel that when we're investing, we're in, you know, obviously with my real estate background, we're acquiring land and considering developments. Our planning is 5 years out. We cannot take the risk that we have an unstable government. And for us, it's regardless of which is the party that's in power. We feel comfortable enough that we can make these investments. It's more the world economy that affects us as opposed to the internal politics. So very, very comfortable for us.
And then not to harp too much on this because it's a thing that nobody really likes to talk about, but gun violence in Portugal, 0. School shootings, 0.
Violence in general.
Police brutality, low.
0.
Because police actually help you. They're friendly to you. They talk to you and say hello.
Exactly. You know, Portugal is one of those countries that the first person you stop for help, for directions, for where's the local coffee shop, which is one of my priorities in life. You know, where's the local coffee shop? I will always stop next to a policeman. I don't, for 1 minute, think that he's going to harass me. For 1 minute, start having a look at my car to see if everything's okay. That's the first person that you trust.
Yep.
I always say to people, when you're living in a safe country, is when your lady policemen are wearing high-heeled shoes. That will tell you the
They're
level.
not running after anybody.
No. I get stopped. I've been stopped in 24 years. I think I've been stopped 3 times by the police just to check that my paperwork's in order. And thank you, sir. Have a nice day. And off you go.
Yeah.
3 times,
yeah.
that's a lot, actually.
3 times. Yeah.
I have 0.
It's
So.
just-
You see, there you go. You've got
No,
that
but
smiling face.
When I talk to my American clients about safety and security, I always tell them I live on the ground floor and we sleep with the windows open.
Yeah.
So that's for me just the basis of nothing is happening. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and then, also in terms of like terrorism, there's never been any terrorist threat in Portugal ever. There's been one hijacking ever.
oh yeah, don't even know.
Yeah, and the guy that was in the hijacking he was on the podcast. He was a pilot, and today
Yeah.
and it was he was the pilot for TAP for TAP
Ah.
Airlines, and there was a hijacking on his plane. It was a Portuguese guy who had a really bad day. He stopped. He spoke to the guy. They had a 3-hour conversation. Him and the hijacker are friends today. So
There
this
you
shows
go.
you.
There you
it's
go.
just like, all right. I'll talk a little bit about healthcare as I've got a bit of experience. Charlotte, you also had some, but I've had a very complicated run with my health. I've got a chronic blood disorder. I've been in hospital in Portugal now 3 or 4 times. One time was very serious for 5 months in 2019. This was all on public healthcare. The healthcare is amazing, it's robust, and I didn't pay a cent. And this is available to people who are, and at that time when I was first in hospital, I was a resident. I was not a citizen of Portugal like I am today. So for people who have the questions about the healthcare, it is incredibly good. And not just that, they are so kind. They are so lovely. They hug, they stroke your hand, they're just the care that you receive is in the healthcare, but then also how people care for you is just something absolutely beautiful. I've just finished a run now of about 3 months of medical treatment, which included some chemo. It was included a very specific injection that I had for a month that's not available everywhere. I did get a bill for some special treatment that I received, but it was like 200 euros. And this is for 3 months of treatment. It's just incredible. The country has a very, for such a small country, it's got an incredibly good health system. And for those of you who are thinking about private healthcare, it is an option.
I have private.
It's inexpensive. I mean, Charlotte, what full coverage? How much?
I have the reason I
month?
took private is when I moved, I was still insured in the other country, but I wanted to be insured here too. I didn't want to mess, and we stayed with it. I pay 50 euros a month, and then the rest is covered. And I can, for example, I know for women, for example, to base yourself, I needed an emergency C-section. I stayed 5 days in the hospital, and the bill at the end cost me 320 euros, I remember. And for me and my husband staying in hospital, we had to eat there and everything. So private is also very good and not expensive. And the people are so kind. That's for me the most. You always used in France. I'm always used to. They are so overloaded, and so they are really fast, and they don't have time for you, and they put you in the hallway or things like this. They are so kind here, and they speak very good English, which is for me very important. I do speak Portuguese nowadays, but when it's medical, I prefer to really understand 100%. So I go in English, and their English is perfect, from the receptionist to the nurse to the doctor. It's incredible.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys. Let's move on. Let's just introduce. We're going to play a video for people, just to kind of encapsulate what you can expect from the process here. This is clients of ours, actually, Wendy and Paul. Charlotte, you were the one that originally started speaking to them, actually. And this is their story of how they discovered Portugal. They wanted to have a property here. They wanted a property in Europe. They wanted a full service solution. They wanted the simplicity. They wanted a seamless process. And this is just a little bit of a background of their story, where they bought, and how their experience was. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after the video. Paul is a lawyer and he authors children's books. So he's a really fascinating guy, but really, really, really precise in what he wanted. He did his background. I mean, he went through a lot of questions, but this will just give you a great idea about the simple life process. So let me share this with you. It's just a short video.
I'm Paul Durham. And
Wendy Durham.
I'm a lawyer, and I'm also an author. I write children's books. And Wendy does a lot of things. She's a massage therapist and a yoga instructor and
a mom.
And this is our apartment in Nazaré, where we've just arrived a week ago. And as we started, looking, of course, a lot of it is research based online, and looking at different places around the world where it might be interesting to own a second property or maybe retire to someday. We kept coming back to Portugal for a lot of reasons, and by coming back I mean research-wise coming back to Portugal. Yep. We look forward to spending more and more time and maybe retiring here someday, but we're not going to be here 12 months out of the year, so we're really looking for somewhere that could provide us services, not only sell us the home, but also help us with things like, getting furniture and decorating it, and being able to manage the property when we're not here, and help us to, rent it maybe during the summer months so that we can, sort of offset, some of the costs that way. We wanted to go with a group that could sort of, a real estate agent who could hand us off to the interior designer, who could hand us off to the property management company.
That we're all interconnected.
Yeah, we're all interconnected, and where everybody sort of knew each other and had experience working together, because that's what we wanted. We wanted sort of a one-stop, people we could get to know and be comfortable with, and could really help us take care of everything. But it's really, for us, it was really important to find a team to work with here. Although I'm a lawyer and I'm used to dealing with contracts, I don't speak Portuguese. I look forward to learning it, but I don't speak Portuguese. So having people that you can trust and interact with regularly, that can not only show you the apartments but can help you decorate it, can help with things like the rental license, can help manage the property while you're not here. To me, that was all. This wouldn't have happened without finding that core group of professionals to help in that way. And we wish that every time we could buy a house or a property that it was this easy.
Okay. Apparently, some people couldn't see the. Apparently, some people couldn't see the video. So I'll just kind of talk about what the basis of the video was. So Paul and Wendy are a couple from the States. They so I'm just trying to get the okay. They were looking for first of all a property in Europe. They wanted to deal with a group where all the services were available to them under one umbrella, a full turnkey solution. Charlotte, you spoke to them originally. I mean, they did everything. They bought the property off plan. So they made use of our project management services. We helped them with a mortgage. We introduced them to their lawyer. They furnished the property with Portugal Interiors. They have SCH who's managing and renting the property for them. They went the full bag. Just tell us about that experience with them and what they were looking for.
Yeah, they went full package. Well, I remember very, very well the first Zoom, because he told me immediately that he was a lawyer. And I got a bit nervous out of it immediately, but just because, you don't want to say something that you don't know if it's legal or something. I don't know. I'm always afraid of ending up in prison. And I remember them talking about the fact that they had two teenage daughters. You never know. They had two teenage daughters, so they needed something not isolated, entertaining for them, and like close to the ocean, things like this. So they had never been to Portugal. So what I always do, or what we always do, is that first we talk about location, things like this. they didn't know if I remember really correctly, they didn't know completely if they wanted an apartment or a house. So that's then also my job to figure out while we discuss what is better, what fits better, what according to what you are looking for, what kind of lifestyle you want. So I'm there to help you ask yourself the right questions. And it ended up that they wanted an apartment or a condo, how you call it in the States. And then they explained that okay, they also need a mortgage, so it's everything. So they were very open to everything. So I was happy to introduce them to an independent lawyer that we like to recommend, that knows a lot about the American the American states and things like this. So he helped them acquire a mortgage also. And afterwards, in the beginning, that's all what they wanted. And afterwards, when I continued talking about, well, listen, we have other departments, and I would be very happy to introduce you, they were very happy to talk then with the furniture department, and then also with our rental department and things like this. So it was a very smooth transition until well, it was during COVID time, so they couldn't come, I remember. And then I went into labor. And then I went into labor, and Dylan had to take over from one day to the other. I thought they could hold on longer, but they didn't. So then you had to take over. Once we already decided on which apartment and which specific property. Correct, Dylan? That's when you took over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It was
we
them
already pinpointed.
Yeah, I mean, and then that's them sitting on that balcony. I mean, David, you know, when we talk about the Simple Life Home Buyer program, you and Louise developed this whole thing with the Leisure Launch Group, with this group of companies, and we see it how the clients have gone through this seamless progression. I mean, it's just wonderful to see the experience that they've had. And then it's a two-barreled question for you. How does it feel to see these real life testimonials now coming up with clients that have done this? It's working, and how important is it for people that are looking to do this?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you that they're also using Portugal accounting to take care of all their tax issues. Americans are very sensitive about tax issues, so they need somebody to work with them. So Portugal accounting, which is also part of the group, is also taking care of their taxes. For me, I, as an immigrant to this country, one of the challenges of arriving in a new country, especially where the language is so different, there's something that I found very easy whenever I've done business in what I like to call Anglo-Saxon countries where the British have been through. There seems to be there is a system that functions. The commerce law is very easy to understand, especially as a South African. So in dealings with Australia, Canada, the US, obviously the UK itself, business is very simple. When you go into the Latin countries, there's a challenge. Their base is a different base. Their base for their law is different. The language is different, which is a huge challenge. Obviously, today I speak Portuguese, but I never did at the time. The understanding of how the bureaucracy works, how the administration works, and people would often say, "Oh, no, Portugal is bureaucratic." It's not. It's just different. It's just different. But one of the challenges that we found, this is talking about 2000, Bev and I, we were looking for houses. It was such a challenge. The industry was the real estate industry. By the way, I'm a realtor as well, but the real estate industry was so disorganized. It has professionalized, and I think it's got a lot to do with it, with having dealt with so many foreigners. The process of purchasing property, registering property, building property, all of these things were huge challenges when we arrived, for us, especially as foreigners. So we decided that using the experience that we had, that we would then apply that at all the different levels. So we try to make it as professional as possible and always have that perspective of a client who's sitting in a foreign country, thousands of miles away, hoping that the investment, which is I always say to my people, this is the second most important investment people will make in their lives. So it's important that we assume that responsibility and recognize that responsibility. So we managed through a lot of hard work to get people to the level, a lot of training involved. I'm a firm believer in training. I'm a firm believer in qualifications. That's why as we go into new countries, I always try and qualify myself in that country. So I'm a realtor, so I'm really happy to be a realtor registered in the US as well. But we've tried to get it as perfect as we possibly could, that the client felt that they could sit in their couch at home and the entire investment would be taken care of. The entire process, the purchase, the initial purchase, the construction if they're buying a new build, the furnishing of their homes, which can be a challenge in a small country. That's all taken care of for them. The connecting of water, the services, registering in the local council, these kind of things. We have people that take care of that, and then obviously once the house is once they've occupied their home, they then have people that have peace of mind that they have a company that's properly managing it. If they want to rent it, they're taking care of their rentals as well. And then from a tax perspective, which is something that occupies most businessmen, from a tax perspective, to know that those things are well taken care of. So that's what we've tried to achieve. We've been the most successful in Portugal. I look around me, there's no group that is anywhere close to what we're doing. That doesn't make us comfortable. We're very uncomfortable because we just want to get even better. And so that's what we keep working towards. My ultimate goal is that buying property in Portugal needs to be easier than buying property down the road from your house in the country that you live. If we can achieve that, then we've achieved the level that we need to do. In terms of the numbers of families that have come through the Simple Life home program, we're now into the thousands. At last, we were about just under 3,000 families that have been through from all over the world. And in those 3,000 families, I think we have 3 Portuguese families. So we've really, really become specialists in countries all over the world. We have clients from the US, which is my favorite. Now it gives me an excuse to visit the US all the time. I'm going back. I'll be back in Florida and Boston this year. But we have clients from Germany, Belgium, Sweden, Scandinavian countries, South Africans, Australians, you name it. We have clients from those countries. So it fills you with a lot of pleasure, a lot of pride that people have felt that they have been well taken care of. And many of them show us, or most of them show us, that they like us is by referring more business to us. So we have a lot of people that are referred. We have a lot of people that buy more property once they've settled in our country or started visiting the country. So these are just wonderful things. And then my best one, the cherry on the top, is that when they get to the point at which they want to sell their home, which often they do, we are the first port of call. They call us. We know everything about their home. We know every possible thing about their home. So they hand it back to us and they say, please take care of us. They don't even need to send us documentation. We have it all. So very proud, very proud.
Cool.
If
Guys,
I can
we're
just
running
add one little thing with the feedback I always get from, and especially more the Americans, because they are further away, they are an ocean away from us, which is very different from Europe. You can jump on a quick flight and have the time you want, is that it's not about, because I guess some people can recommend other companies they know and things like this, but what they like is that when they don't remember the name or the person that takes care of it, or because of course you have quite some departments, hey Charlotte, I need to get in contact with the furniture department, I don't remember, or I lost the email or something. No problem, I give you here the email of Elena or for Anna or things like this. So it's like it's not just we are different departments, it's like we work together, like we are literally sitting across from each other and we can just go and see each other, have a coffee. So there's really this group feeling that we have. That's a lot of Americans especially like that a lot.
Yeah. There's something that one of the things that I found doing business in Portugal, everything revolves around the family and the relationships in the family. So you'll find that their work is an extension of their home life. They live in families. Portuguese have extended families. They culturally, I think that's what makes it such a beautiful country, is because the family works, the whole system of family works really, really well. and that extends itself into the workplace. So that's why you just feel that you're taken care of by somebody who is family. So it really works. Yeah.
Yeah. We are at the end of the allotted time for this webinar, but as you know, as people have learned in Portugal, we love a good conversation. So we're going to just push on through. For those of you that want to stick around, please do. For those that you can't, you will be getting a recording of this webinar if you want to watch it back. But we're going to carry on. Let's just talk about investing in Portugal, because there's a couple of things that we just want to cover. Charlotte, just take us through a couple of your favorite locations on the map there, and just give people just a brief overview of some of these special locations along the coastline.
Yeah, I've taken 3 locations, which are they are very different locations, and that I choose as my favorite one. I'll go from the north to the south. I don't know if you can see them on the map. I think yes, we can. My first real favorite location is Valforado, and Valforado is it's a special place for me. It's just beach, but it's just breathtaking. So once we have a discussion together, I will show you with the virtual tour that we have. But it's a location which is really for nature lovers also. That is really a breath of fresh air. It's kind of rare in other countries. I found from the south of France to still have really coastal areas that are completely nature, that are completely not overtaken. And that's an area which is really breathtaking. Like we have some projects which are really 20-30 meters from the ocean, where you have a full ocean view. And from an investment purpose, of course, well, I always say in ocean view, you can never go wrong, first of all. There is no way that you can go wrong, but also it is an area where you walk down little wooden stairs, and then it's just kilometers of beach. So people who like to not be isolated, because you take the car and in 8 minutes you are at the supermarket, so you know that's not isolated, but you want to be a bit by yourself, you want to be like really part of nature. Valforado for me is the place to be. For me, that's where I like to go, and just when I'm this close of killing my husband, I just go there to have a breath because I need some space. So that is my first point. The second point is São Martinho do Porto. So for me, it's also very special. The first reason is, of course, because our office is there. So for me, it's really cool. It's kind of cool to have an office where you walk 2 minutes and then you can just eat your sandwich on the beach. It's a natural shaped bay. And it's an area, it's a small city, but it has everything you need. It has like the local market, it has one bigger supermarket, it has everything you need. But it still has that feeling of a small area, and it's really still Portuguese. So it doesn't have like huge towers, or it's not, it's not an area where you have like all the touristic things. And so a lot of people really like to live there because they are so close to the ocean, because the city is literally on the bay, but you don't have this big feeling of immediately being part of the big coastal area with all the pubs and the bars and the things like this. So you really have this feeling of being really in Portugal still, which is not always easy in Portugal. Unfortunately, more in the south, you have this, it took a little bit over tourism, and it's very touristic places and things like this. And that's the thing about the Silver Coast, and for me, São Martinho do Porto, is that it's still really Portugal, although you have your feet in the water. And that's something for me that I don't think it exists in a lot of places in Europe anymore, unfortunately. And when I go even more south, my third best location really is Foz do Aredio. It's a lagoon, which dries, the part of the beach dries up in the summer, and it becomes some kind of a lake. So it's called the Lagoon of Óbidos. And it's very famous for kite surfing, which is super exciting to watch. There's no way Jose that I'm doing that. Like, it looks super scary, but they have a lot of water sport activities and things like this. So it's also a huge beach. So for the kids, it's really nice because they can run everywhere. There's so much sand for them. Like, really, there's so much space. And when you go into the village, which is a smaller village, well, more Portuguese than that, for me, it's like the traditional village, where you have like the little center where they can put the music festivals, and in the summer you have a lot of things happening. And something you have to know, guys, in Portugal, is that even when you live in a small village, so this one is not that small, but if you live in a small village, you will always have a little supermarket. You will always have cafes and restaurants. Like I always say, the only negative thing about Portugal is that you don't lose weight, because there's always restaurants everywhere. I say that to every client, like there's no way you lose weight, because there's always a bakery everywhere, even in very small, very, very small areas. And so it's an area where you stand and you're really in the middle of Portugal. Like it cannot be more Portuguese. And
Lovely.
that's a lot of our clients are looking for that. They are looking for the real Portuguese feeling. Like it's not big tower and very all these big things and the lights, and no, it's about being part of the Portuguese community. And well, for me, you cannot be anywhere else on the Silver Coast for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlotte. I mean, there's a couple other coastal towns like Nazaré. Everyone's got used to Nazaré. We've got Arbidas, we've got Caldas, Salida de Porto. These are beautiful places. But David, from an investment perspective, what makes these good investment locations? What should people know about these areas?
Yeah, well, I have a finance background, so everything for me comes down to numbers. I really enjoy this country from a emotional perspective, but numbers are always the things that I need. I feel that it's important that if you're going to invest in real estate, you want it to be something that will be worth more than the day you decide to exit your investment, that it will always be worth more. And there are a couple of tricks that you can use in the application of this. I think most people have heard these. But living in Portugal, there are some nuances. We're a really small country. So location for us location can vary, and I'll explain why. They're not typical in terms of location. So things that we know about is being close to the sea, sea views, within access to the sea. These are always great locations. There's something wonderful about the Silver Coast, which for developers, that's why we don't attract huge development companies. We have a very low density. We're a green zone. The Silver Coast was the area amongst the parts of Portugal that was chosen to be the green zones when we went into the European Union. It wasn't easy to access in those days. It used to take you a couple of hours to access the Silver Coast. Today it's a short drive because of the A8, the freeway. But the density that they allow is very low. So the maximum buildings you're allowed to build are top end 3 stories, 3 levels. So for Americans, that will be a ground level, level 1, 2, and 3. So often because we did. So that will be 3 levels. Most developments don't exceed about 20 units, 20, 25 units. So they're very, very low density. We do not have, and it would not be approved, huge housing estates that get developed in most other countries. What the result is that the demand is always high. There's always much more demand than what the market can produce. There's this protection of Portuguese authenticity, is what Charlotte was talking about, just reinforcing that. It's most likely that your neighbor is going to be Portuguese. It's most likely that you're going to wake up in the morning and there'll be lemons on your doorstep. I don't know why Portuguese have a mass of lemons growing in their garden.
Always so many lemons.
I don't know what they do with it.
It's most likely when the potato season is out, you might find some potatoes or
when
onions.
Life gives you lemons, it's because you're next to a Portuguese person.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true.
So unique locations. Locations can be beach. Locations can be village. Just curiously, when we talk about towns or cities in Portugal, we really have villages, and there's no real equivalent. So a village in Portugal would have probably 1,000 inhabitants would be the maximum, 1,500 inhabitants. So they're very, very small. Towns would probably be about 20, 25,000 inhabitants. So just to give you a sense, even our cities, our biggest city, Lisbon, has probably now closer to about 600,000 people. So everything is is far less in terms of. But what do we look for as a developer, as a numbers person? What do I look for in terms of investment? I look for locations that are super unique. Valparaiso, which Charlotte was talking about, is a location that is surrounded by a natural reserve. So likelihood of there being more construction, zero. What will happen is that those properties, besides the lifestyle that they give you, the experience that they give you, they're irreplaceable. So when it comes time to sell your property, you know that your property you'll get a good return out of them. When we go to smaller villages, we try and be on the edge of the village so that we have a bit of nature, because a lot of our clients are coming to Portugal for something that's a little bit different to what they have at home, so they don't want to be in the city. So we try and place them on the edge of the village or closer, so that we're in walking distance to the center of the village. Again, that makes it a very desirable location. And then when you're talking about the countryside, for us, the countryside is only a 10-minute drive. So often when I say to people the countryside, they imagine that they're going to make a 3-hour driving. No, it's a 10-minute drive. So 10 minutes in Portugal can put you in the countryside. So to give you an example of my own home, I live in Foz do Areia. I'm about 300, let's say in US, probably about 500 yards from the center of the village. So this morning, having my coffee is a walk into the center of the village. My neighbor is a forest, a beautiful forest that I can walk into, and the beach is literally about 750 yards, 800 yards from my home, just over the hill and down, and I'm on the beach. You can achieve these things in Portugal, which are very few countries in the world that you can achieve them from. There's the other side of investment in Portugal. We have a huge shortage of housing. We've got to differentiate between affordable housing and second homes or lifestyle homes. In affordable housing, we have a huge shortage, which is worldwide, and most cities in the world or most countries in the world are struggling with the same challenge, or certainly in the West. But on second homes, coastal homes, the kind of homes that our clients are looking for, there is a huge shortage. So what does it mean for me as an investor, or for you as an investor, or for our clients as investors? They know that their home that they're purchasing today will be desirable, very desirable. Besides all the other normal advice that we give, they know that they will be desirable because there is such a huge shortage. Their locations are unique, so makes them really special. So they know that will happen. One of the challenges that we have in Portugal, I'm also a developer, but also construction. I'm also in the construction area. We're one of the biggest developers in our region. Labor is a huge problem. The cost of construction is a huge problem. All of these costs are escalating. I used to say to people in the early 2000s, I used to say to people, you can expect at least a 5% return on your property as it grows. Why? Because the cost of construction increases by 5% per annum. So if you're investing today, you know that in 2 years' time, your property will be worth at least 10% more than what it is today. In the current last 10 years, you can change that number to 10%. We are seeing an increase of between 10 and 15% per annum in the cost of construction. And understand this, we are the volume people. We negotiate, we're able to negotiate huge volume. We're able to negotiate discounts. We're able to do all of those things. So we're able to leverage suppliers, and we are experiencing a 10 to 15% increase per annum. What does that mean for our clients? If they purchase their homes today, by the time they get delivery of their homes, it's at least 10 or 15% worth more than what they purchased it for. Our experience has been that people have made much higher returns than that. That's not the reason why they come to Portugal. People come to Portugal for the quality of life, for these beautiful people, for these kind people, for all of these things, for the security, the health services, the way that the community looks after you. But it's always good to know that the day that we decide to exit our investment, whether it's us ourselves or our children who come, they will get a huge return from our investment. So that gives lots of comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at the couple that were in the video. I mean, they bought their apartment close to 300,000 euros at the time, or just
320,
under.
I think. 320.
Yeah, okay. So just what's it worth today? A Sea View apartment in Nazaré.
I would not sell a sea view apartment today under 600,000 euros, depending on its location in the building. From what I saw from the video, I would think it'd be closer to a 600,000 euro apartment.
Amazing. I mean, David, you've covered a bit of the investment side of this that we on this slide, but and you did touch on new build. I mean, why is new build a good investment? You've invested predominantly in new build properties. Why?
Yes, this should be very obvious, but often people don't realize this. There's a reason why I often say to people that the attraction for Europe is to come and buy. Often I'll meet people in the exhibitions and the places when I travel. They say, oh, I'd love to buy an old house. A ruin is the word that they use, a ruin, and then restore it. And I always say to them, there's a reason why Portuguese people don't live in those ruins. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they are horrible to live in. These things were built for a different time. So from an investment perspective, if you're buying a house that you've restored, you must understand that the limitation on how that will grow is very, very limited. You need to find that one person that likes a house the way that you like it. Buying a second-hand home, again, a resale home, something that's over, let's say, 10 or 15 years old, probably, let's be conservative, maybe 15 to 25 years old. These haven't been prepared for the modern technologies. They're not insulated properly. They just need so much more work. Also, legislation changed dramatically since about 2008. Sort of started 10, it really set itself in. The legislation in Portugal is so high in terms of energy efficiency. So buying a new home today means that your home will be the first one to be sold. When in the worst market, I always measure the investments by the worst market. In the worst market, it's most likely that people are going to go for the new homes. They're just much more comfortable, beautiful, big windows, lots of natural light, just swimming pools. All of these things are just amazing. So people just prefer. I personally, when I get approached to somebody will say to me, would you consider restoring this beautiful home that I bought? I say to them, I'd rather knock it down and rebuild it, because I know that they will never, ever be happy with their home. And the capital that people tend to overcapitalize on these homes and then can't understand why they're not getting the yield that their friends who bought a modern home built can. There's also the benefit that when you're working with a good group, new homes are built. We build, just incidentally, for Americans, I mean, we've got lots of Americans on today's webinar. Our homes are all built of brick and mortar, which is quite different when I was in the US. Most homes in the US are built in wood and board and drywalling and all of these things. So homes in the US, I would, as a developer, I'm not sure what an agent will tell you in the US, but homes are really built for 20, 25 years. In Portugal, your homes are built for the next 100 years. So there's just this much better, more solid construction, which means from an investment perspective, I know that when I decide to exit my investment, when I decide to sell my home, my beautiful home that I have here in the Algarve, or the one that I have on the Silver Coast, I know that I will get a very comfortable return on my property.
Awesome. I'm going to just talk us through these two properties. Charlotte's already spoken to us about the locations, and just for time's sake, but this just to give people a feel for the type of property that you can get, which would have the turnkey solution that people are looking for, give you access to the Simple Life home buyer program. And I thought these are two nice examples. So we've got on the left-hand side here, this is a pre-construction home in Foz do Aurélio, okay, 3 bedrooms, walking distance to the center of the village, not far from the beach, beautiful 3-bedroom modern home. You spoke about lots of glass, lots of natural light, a pool, bit of outside space, privacy on the edge of the village, like you spoke about, having access to the forest, all of these kind of things. And on the right, this is a apartments in São Martinho de Porto. You spoke about the limited sizes of buildings, and I mean, this has got 10 apartments in the building with a rooftop pool, a terrace, beautiful views, close to the beach, in a beautiful green belt on the bay. From an investment side of perspective, what makes these so advantageous, David?
Foz do Areia, let's start with Foz do Areia. Foz do Areia is where affluent Portuguese would always invest. It's the place that the Portuguese, so historically, it was the bankers, the politicians. Politicians in those days weren't poor. They obviously had other ways of making money. Business leaders, that's where they would own. So in Lisbon, Portuguese, traditionally the Portuguese would own an apartment in Lisbon where they would spend effectively 9 months of the year. And then when Lisbon became too hot in the summer, they would then move out to Foz do Areia. So it's a really exclusive area. Foz do Areia has very little urban real estate. In other words, when we refer to urban as land that can be built on, it is completely surrounded by green zones. So from this perspective, so today it remains an affluent area. Most foreigners with a budget will choose Foz do Areia on the Silver Coast as a place which is prestigious to own. The village, you're really close to the center of the village. Yeah, the village life, for me, my favorite. You've got coffee shops, you've got restaurants, you've got the stuff that you have, what you eat, comes straight out of the ocean. You know, when people say to you, ameijoas, which are clams that Portuguese people absolutely adore, they come out of the lagoon. You can literally see the fishermen picking
Getting them.
the clams. The fish, you can see the fishermen catching it. You can see the water, the boats coming in. This is what Foz do Areia has. Quite an exclusive area, but very small village and not an easy entry for developers. So this development, I think, correct me, I think it only has 6 houses is the size.
8, yeah.
7 houses,
Yeah.
there you go. Very, very small. And in Foz do Areia, it's unlikely that you will ever get anything more than 7 houses. We recently did a development down the road, which was 10 houses. It just shows you that the amount of houses. Our neighbor that's just finished or in the process of finishing, the small developer in the area, 3 houses. You know, these are really, really low density. So Foz do Areia for me is really, really special. It has cachet. I don't know if it's a term that people understand, but it has cachet. It's a prestigious area to own in. With very difficult entry, very few opportunities to enter to Foz do Areia.
And then the process here, just to get a bit into the nuts and bolts, but again, just to the process here, acquiring the land first, there's advantages to this, building in stages, there's advantages, there's tax benefits to this, but people need to get in touch with us to know more because it is super interesting. Talk about the apartments.
If you want a home, if you want the Portuguese lifestyle, but you want to be serious about the investment that you're going to make, talk to Charlotte, to Dylan, and to the colleagues. It's important. Let them take you through the process. There's a lot of saving that you can do, and also security, because just a small thing that you mentioned is owning the land. It's really, really important from day one. Most developments around certainly the bigger developments, you don't have that level of security in terms of what you are doing. The second property I really like because it is so unique. It's in a region, actually, incidentally, a little bit of history for those that enjoy history. Vasco da Gama's boat was built. The folklore is that the boats that went to India with Vasco da Gama were built in this region, in this basin. Because São Martinho do Porto, the bay of São Martinho do Porto is so shallow, they were able to build the boats in the shallow area, and then as the tide came in, it would go in. So where this building is built, that's one of the areas that the boats were built. So it wouldn't be surprising if you're busy digging in your garden and you find something that's 600 years old. Quite possible. But what makes this area special is in walking distance to the beach. You're a couple of 100 yards from the beach, but you're surrounded by nature, which is really difficult to achieve in most locations. Valforad is one of them, but it's really, really difficult to achieve. So we as developers, when we find land that has this uniqueness, that you're in nature, but you're by the beach, you're in the countryside, but you're next to the beach, it's kind of really impossible. You know, I often visit the south of France. I was in Sorrento the other day as well. You know, whatever has access to the beach has got something built on it. Whereas in Portugal, you still, you know, in this region, we're still able to find these things. So this building for me is really, really special. It's a quieter spot. So you're close to the beach. You're walking distance to Sommerting, the village of Sommerting de Poort, with all of its bars, all of its restaurants. Sorry, we don't have bars, but all of its restaurants and coffee shops on the one side. And then you've got Salive de Poort, which is on the other side of the bay. Exactly the same. Coffee shops, it's smaller, a bit quieter, but just it's really pleasant. And you have sheep. You walk through the countryside as you're
And
walking
horses.
through. Sheep, and there's
And,
horses,
and ocean view.
and you have ocean view. It's just like this thing that it's almost impossible to imagine.
Listen,
that in
where
this day
else
and
in
age,
the world
you're able to have different centuries.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like you're right next, as you look out your window. On the one side, you have something that went on 300 years ago, and on the other side, you have this beautiful beach and sea, and then you're sitting in front of your computer with this centuries. You don't even need Elon Musk to help you get some Starlink things. You have fiber optic cable taking you all the way, speaking and doing business all over the world. It's just an amazing location. I love it. I love it to bits.
Did you hear that in the video of Paul and Wendy's, the chickens? The chickens in the background. I mean, those were not sound effects, eh? Those were real chickens.
Those are real. I mean, you've got to prepare yourself.
Sea-view apartment with chickens.
I thought it was Dylan on the back.
No.
You've got to prepare. I mean, this is so important for foreigners coming to Portugal. Is you're coming for an authentic life, and you've got to be prepared for that. You've got to be prepared. It's so beautiful. So often when people say to me, why don't they change that? I'm going, no. Do not change anything. Soon you will learn to love it. And it's true. Once you've been living here for years, you don't want them to change anything at all. Just please leave it the way it is. Just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Cool. We have gone 30 minutes over. Okay. Wow. So we're going to give 5 minutes.
Too much fun.
We like a good conversation in Portugal. Have you ever been to the checkout counter in Portugal? You know, takes a long time because everyone likes a chat, you know. So we'll just go through a couple of questions here. I've got a question from Angela. As an American looking at D7 visas, is this the best option to move to Portugal? For an American, yeah, it's one of the best options. Okay. Golden visas being peddled, it doesn't help you at all as an American. Your best option are these visa options that are available. They've been available for a long time. But talk to us about how all of that works, because it starts off with having an address in Portugal. The D7 is the most common. There's another 7 different visa options available for people that want to come and live in Portugal, and you're not going to be limited by where you want to be. Or how much you
I would highlight the golden visa story. It was never designed for Americans. So please just ignore that. When somebody talks about golden visa, just ignore it, because it's been the most abused name that they could have ever come out with. It never applied to Americans to begin with. There are much easier visas, much more attractive visas for Americans. So that should be the least of your concern.
So anybody that wants to pop in their question, from Paul, you've spoken much about near the coast. What about more to the interior for living, for homes? I don't know if you guys want to add to that. Go ahead, David.
Well, for our interior is a 10 or 15-minute drive from the coast. So there will be options for you in those. We obviously only do new homes. We don't do old homes or old restorations, things like this. We only do new homes, but locations will always be locations which are set up on hillsides with amazing country views. things like this here.
We got a few questions here from Marvin, and I'll try to unpack a little bit and answer them as quick as I can. What is unbuildable land used for? Usually nothing. It's just there for people to enjoy.
Unbuildable land is there it's to be left the way that nature intended
Exactly.
it. So we have different levels. We have land that is for agricultural use. There's land that is reserved. So in other words, you cannot touch it. And then there's land, just so that for people that don't know, Portugal's coastline belongs to the Portuguese people. So you're not allowed to build on the coast, on the actual. So something that you see in, I was recently in California, when you drive up that Malibu coast, that is not allowed in Portugal. You're not allowed to build on the coast.
Yeah.
The beach belongs to all of the Portuguese people. If an agent tells you that you can build on non-buildable land, I would run.
So that answers the next question from Marvin, was how to turn land that is unbuildable and turn into land that is buildable. It's not possible.
That's the wonderful thing about Portugal. That's not possible.
Yeah. Is there an alternative, David, maybe you can answer this one. Is there an alternative mortgage term from the 75-year-old mortgage term limit in Portugal? I'm not sure.
No.
I don't think. No.
No.
75 is the cutoff.
People need to understand this. A Portuguese bank is taking a huge risk for providing finance to a person in a foreign country, in another country. If things go badly for them, they literally walk to the airport, get onto the plane and fly away. And I'm sure the bank could try and reach out to try and recover the investment, but it's most likely that they won't. So 75 is the limit. And I would say, if you're investing in real estate in a foreign country, you should consider this as being, Portuguese are quite conservative in terms of the investment. So just an interesting fact for most people, 75% of all Portuguese property owners, house owners, don't have a mortgage. So it just shows you how conservative the country is in that regard. We use very, very little credit. So for the banks to allow, to the age of 75, for the banks to allow a loan to value of 60, 70%, this is huge, considering that these people are foreigners.
Yeah, well, that answers another question that we've got from Nabil. How is financing mortgage conditions for Canadians? Nabil, basically expect 60 to 70% loan to value. They will take into account your age. They will take into account your income, of course, your nationality. And you also need to make sure that what your mortgage repayments will be, they call it the effort rate, doesn't exceed 25% of what you're bringing in on a monthly to yearly basis. But yeah, it is possible to get finance here in Portugal for Canadians.
Yeah. But in my experience, just traveling around the world as I do, Portugal's got to be one of the easiest countries to raise finance if you have the right conditions. If your financial conditions are good, it's got to be one of the easiest countries to raise finance.
Yeah. We've covered, we've got a question in from Marcy about what is the Simple Life Home Buyer Program. We've covered that in quite a lot of our discussions. So for those of you who missed it, just watch it back. But basically, being a Simple Life Home Buyer gives you access to all of these services that we've discussed on this webinar, helping you from the realtor that helps you find the home of your dreams, to project manager that sees you through the construction process of your house, property management services, furniture services with Portugal Interiors, rental services, and accounting services, all under one umbrella as part of the Simple Life Home Buyer Program. But please do contact us to find out more about that.
Literally, all you need when you move into your home is your groceries. And if you ask them, they'll even buy that for you too. That's how simple it is.
You
can't make it any simpler than that.
You may or may not get some bottles of wine from us. We can't confirm or deny.
You will always get wine.
Yeah.
We like wine. We like sharing wine.
Guys, thank you so much for a wonderful webinar. Sorry to everybody who was listening that we went on for a little bit longer than planned, but it was a great conversation. David and Charlotte, thank you. Guys that want to be in touch, please go to portugalrealty.com.
And I will call you.
Yeah, that's shouldn't. Don't be afraid.
I will say hi,
That
Charlotte, the pregnant lady.
exactly. But book a
Be
call.
kind, she's
You've got a place to go, and on our contact side, you can book a call to speak with one of our sales team. We also have a Belgian website that you can also go emoportugal.com to speak to one of our Belgian, if you're listening from Belgium or the Netherlands, and book a call to speak to us. We'd love to show you more about this beautiful country of ours and the property options available, and also listen to the podcast, Portugal, The Simple Life, every Monday, back online in September. But yeah, as we say, welcome to The Simple Life. Muito obrigado, guys. Thank you.
I'm going for my coffee.
Bye, guys.
Thank you very
Beautiful.
much. All the
Bye.
Bye bye.
best.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.